Give me a second because Sanjiv Bajaj is with us, CMD Bajaj Finserv, Financial Services, also President-Designate CII. Good morning, Sanjiv Bajaj. Good to always, as ever, have you on. Now, Sanjiv Bajaj, we're now fairly close, just about, I think, an hour before the budget speech. So just wanted to ask you as well something we've been asking other panelists, that while we talk about the expectations that the corporate sector and other sectors have from the budget, in terms of the corporate sector itself, this gap between, on one hand, we see tax revenue surging, indicating that corporates are doing fairly well, but on the other hand, there's still not enough capital investment, not enough new projects are coming up, not enough jobs are being created. How do you explain that?
Okay, let me take a stab at that, Vasu. One, capital investment, as you know, we are seeing enough green shoots of those coming from the private sector. We recently did a survey among some members, and over 50% are already engaging in various levels of capital investment. Now, this is going to take a few quarters by the time this actually hits the ground running. A lot depends on demand, and we know demand has been erratic. We have good months between lockdowns where we're seeing fairly strong consumer demand. There could be certain sectors that don't have it, but broadly, if you see it, that's why your indirect tax collections also have been good. So we need to make sure consumer demand stays steady. To do that, we have to make sure the pandemic remains in control. For example, this particular wave has been very well controlled because of all the investments in healthcare. But we have to continue working on that. Use the right scientific advisors, but go ahead with boosters, go ahead with mix and match, get the next set of therapeutics in. Anticipate change. You could get a bad strain coming, so anticipate the change, because only when the common man feels that his life is secure is he going to go and empty his wallet. So that's one. Second is, government has played a significant role in putting liquidity in the hands of the most vulnerable and MSMEs. Continue doing that because we are not out of this pandemic yet. Continue the investment in infrastructure for some time. And as long as we keep things stable, the private sector investments are going to come. And once that comes, that's going to be a force multiplier. So that's how I would answer this question.
So just to ask you, very interesting things you said. I want to take you up on several of those. But just to ask you, Sanjiv Bajaj, on your own area which you work in, Bajaj Financial Services, what are you seeing in terms of the change? Are you seeing an uptick in terms of your own growth? And
so very interestingly, for example, if you see through the second wave, we saw rural India continuing to show very strong growth on consumption. Urban slowed down again through the lockdowns, but because the lockdowns were more micro-contained, it was much better than the first wave. Interestingly, in the last couple of months, rural has started slowing down for multiple reasons, and that's why one of CI's suggestions also is to continue with the Manrega scheme, give it more teeth going ahead because it plays a very significant role. Urban, on the other hand, has come back. And we know that there are some sectors, like the lowest end of the economy buys cheap motorcycles, that is still down. We know that any product which has got chips, computer chips, those are down. But otherwise, we are seeing strong momentum. January is looking good. Even through this wave, we are finding that wherever we can get feet on the ground, we are seeing good demand.
Okay. But I do want to ask you, when you said that the government has done enough to put liquidity in the hands of those, particularly at the lower tiers of the economy, the poor, the disadvantaged, the counter view is that in terms of our own stimulus package or financial packages, the multiple Atmanirbhar schemes, these were amongst the stingiest in the world. The spending was barely 1% of GDP in terms of actual cash out to the government. Do you think that there's much more that can be done there, particularly, as you say, to stimulate demand, to break this cycle of low demand and therefore, low capital spending?
Yeah, so the challenge that we had as a country is we don't have a strong, large currency like some of the Western countries or even countries like Japan, where they could spend a lot more than what we could. So we had to do it more thoughtfully. I was actually one of those people a year and a half back pushing the government to spend even more. But I must say that in hindsight, they've balanced this quite well. Now, I do believe something more on the consumption side could have helped, but I'm also encouraged to see that many months in the last 6 months, we are seeing very strong consumption numbers. So I believe that we are in the right balance. But what we have to be careful about is that there will, or there could be additional waves in the pandemic. There could be situations where the government needs to spend more. So they need to keep some of their gunpowder dry for some of these emergency situations.
All right, okay, fascinating. Well, we just are already seeing on the screen both the finance minister at Rashtrapati Bhavan, sharing a copy, presenting a copy of the budget to the president, and of course, the traditional sight of the budget papers being unloaded at Parliament House in those large satchels. Supriya, as a reporter, would remember covering those on many occasions. So that countdown has begun, and but we have to take a break, and we'll come back with NDTV's rolling coverage.